Sunset on Sunset Boulevard, Los Angeles, California. Immortalized by Hollywood and sensationalized by its celebrities. The world continues to flock here, driven by a thirst for money, sex, power, and fame. This is the Dream Machine, a place where wannabes, groupies, and has-beens rub shoulders in the shadows of the chosen few who have made it. Sunset Boulevard, America's street of dreams, a boulevard of broken dreams. In the golden glow of the Hollywood Hills, Sunset Boulevard undulates from downtown Los Angeles to the Pacific Ocean, with more curves and nasty little secrets than the countless stars and clubs that made it famous. Slicing straight through the heart of Hollywood, this is America's Dream Street. A dream that feeds off its own manufactured mystique. But beyond the glamorous and decadent facade, the true beginnings of Sunset Boulevard can be found here, in the core of downtown Los Angeles. In 1781, the original Sunset Boulevard was a dusty cow trail that passed through this tiny Mexican pueblo. The Olvera Street Market was the first settlement in the city and still retains the flavor of its Mexican roots. As the street and the city grew westward, the cow trail became first a dirt road and then a boulevard that eventually spread through several districts, including the largely immigrant community of Echo Park. The famously decadent 2-mile or 3-kilometer section known as the Sunset Strip in West Hollywood, and the wealthy enclaves of Beverly Hills and Bel Air, finally coming to an end at the Pacific Ocean. But the most celebrated district on Sunset is Hollywood.
At work and at play, see where they live, how they live, and why they live.
For much of the past century, the history of Sunset Boulevard has been about the history of Hollywood itself. At the famous intersection of Sunset and Vine, motion picture history was made when an enterprising young filmmaker named Cecil B. DeMille transformed a barn into a studio and shot the first full-length motion picture in Hollywood called The Squaw Man. The barn has since moved several times and is now located north of Sunset, where the newly restored building houses the Hollywood Heritage Museum, an important archive for local historians like Mark Wanamaker.
Here we are in the original DeMille Laskey barn, the original studio of the Laskey Feature Play Company and later Paramount Pictures. In this barn was where all of the dressing rooms were, where the offices were, where set construction was and storage. And attached to this barn was the laboratory and the stage where they made the film, The Squaw Man. Way up above here you see this panorama shot. The first day of shooting of The Squaw Man on December 29th, 1913. And out here is everybody, all the cast members. Cecil B. DeMille is standing there with his hat on and his boots and his riding pants. And also the co-directors way up there is Oscar Apfel, and he co-directed it with DeMille. This was DeMille's first feature film, first film, period, and he needed to learn all the ins and outs of filmmaking. On the right is a scene from the English club scenes, which is supposed to take place in London, but of course taking place on an outdoor stage in Hollywood at Sunset and Vine.
Today, a reminder of Sunset and Vine's early Hollywood history can be found in this mural, celebrating the stars of the silent film era. The 1920s marked the beginning of the studio system in Hollywood, and Sunset Boulevard was where most of the major studios first set up shop, including Warner Brothers, which is still at Sunset and Bronson. Columbia Pictures, now Sunset Gower Studios, and Universal, which was also at Sunset and Gower, with Paramount Pictures a few blocks to the south. In the 20s and 30s, dozens of small studios based around Sunset and Gower churned out countless low-budget cowboy movies. This area was nicknamed Gower Gulch in honor of all the extras hanging around in Western clothes, waiting for a job. Today, the only signs of the Gower Gulch Westerns are at this shopping mall on the south side of the boulevard. During Hollywood's golden age, Sunset Boulevard was where the stars came to work and play. Glamorous matinee idols like Clark Gable, Carole Lombard, and Marilyn Monroe. Celebrity lookalikes are a dime a dozen in Hollywood, but they still draw a crowd. And stargazing tours like this one, called Hollywood Classic Tours, usually begin here, before taking in the sights on Sunset.
Oh, here's the Rainbow Room, boys.
Actress Holly Bevan has been impersonating Marilyn Monroe since she was a teenager.
Being Marilyn, I get to, well, certainly get away with a lot more than I would be able to as Holly. You know, I get to flirt like crazy and say sort of crazy stuff, you know, that I wouldn't necessarily be able to get away with just as myself.
You know, I just found out yesterday that sayonara is actually a Japanese word. Doesn't sound Japanese at all, does it?
Sunset is the kind of street, you know, you start out in Hollywood, and it's very raw there. You know, that's where you find people who come to town and they have no experience, they're direct off the bus. And then the further west you go by all the old homes, and it makes you think, wow, you know, what Hollywood used to be like, and the famous people. This was their life, you know, surrounded by this beauty. It's in a place where things like that are attainable, however incredible it may seem.
But the life of Hollywood stardom has a darker side, memorably captured by Gloria Swanson in the 1950 classic Sunset Boulevard.
The film that every critic says is a giant among motion pictures.
The story of a silent screen star whose career was crushed with the arrival of talkies. The movie gave Swanson her most memorable role as Norma Desmond and exposed the tragedy that lurked behind the glitz and glamour of Hollywood.
What you're trying to say is you don't want me to love you. Say it.
This classic Hollywood film became a perfect metaphor for the boulevard of broken dreams. Sandwiched between Hollywood and Beverly Hills, the Sunset Strip runs almost 2 miles, or 3 kilometers, from Crescent Heights to Doheny. Although no one in this city walks, you could stroll from end to end and barely scuff your Pradas. This is also where the temptations of Sunset are the greatest, a place where people on their way up the ladder of success rub shoulders with those on their way down. The Strip became a Hollywood playground in the 1920s because of its location just outside the boundaries of LA County. Free from restrictive bylaws, it became a hotbed of speakeasies, dance clubs, and restaurants. Places with exotic names like the Trocadero, the Mocambo, and the Garden of Allah. When Joni Mitchell sang "They Paved Paradise" and put up a parking lot, she was referring to the Garden of Allah, once located here at the southwest corner of Sunset and Crescent Heights, the beginning of the Strip. Although the Garden of Allah was torn down and its contents auctioned off in the 1950s, this infamous hotel complex was once ground zero for Hollywood decadence. Built in 1921, its hard-drinking residents included W.C. Fields and F. Scott Fitzgerald. And actress Tallulah Bankhead liked to swim naked in the pool. Across the street, the Virgin Megastore now occupies the site where the famous Schwab's Pharmacy once stood. It was another favorite hangout for wannabes on the Strip. Contrary to Hollywood legend, no stars were discovered here. But the coffee shop was popular with the local Hollywood elite. Charlie Chaplin played pinball in the back room, and Harold Arlen composed Somewhere Over the Rainbow at the counter. But today, it's the music industry, not Hollywood, that dominates the Strip. The soul of the Sunset music scene, although technically outside the boundaries of the Strip, is an area known as Guitar Gulch, a cluster of stores anchored by the world-famous Guitar Center. Outside, the Rock Walk features the handprints of its famous patrons, including Carlos Santana, Stevie Wonder, and Peter Frampton. Inside, there's a constant clash of electronic chords as would-be sultans of swing try out the latest gear. They come to pay homage to the Guitar Museum and hope to catch a glimpse of a local celebrity like Eddie Van Halen or guitarist Tracy Guns, the co-founder of the band Guns N' Roses and founder of LA Guns.
I was born about 3 blocks from Sunset Boulevard, and growing up, I was never more than a mile away from Sunset Boulevard. It's the first place I ever saw a prostitute, first place I ever got high, smoked a cigarette, had a drink. I put Guns N' Roses together right behind this building. I put LA Guns together right behind this building. So Sunset means a lot to me. You know, it's a wonderful place. It's magic.
For decades, the Strip has been a magnet for musicians. And club owner Mario Maglieri is the Strip's unofficial godfather.
This is the Whiskey A Go-Go. The Whiskey was the first disco in the United States. Well, the go-go days, you had a cage. It used to be right up here. That's almost 40 years ago. And they have 2 shows a night. Today they only got 1 show and it's all over. And during intermission, when the bands got off, the go-go girls would get up there and shake it, you know what I mean, with rock and roll. This used to be where you see right here, used to be a dance floor, about 1.5 feet off the ground. That was the Whiskey.
The Whiskey A Go-Go brought go-go dancers to America. Located in the heart of the Strip, this was LA's coolest club in the swingin' 60s. Today, the Whiskey is where up-and-coming LA bands strut their stuff. At one time, it was home to the Doors, Buffalo Springfield, the Byrds, and Iron Butterfly. A drunken Jim Morrison regularly caroused here, as did Janis Joplin.
Hair was long. I don't know if she ever took a bath, but she had stringy hair, dirty fingernails, but she liked her Southern comfort. She don't want a glass, she want the whole bottle. But she was a good chick, good entertainer. Jim Morrison was a big kid, nice kid, and he got into drugs and alcohol, and they just put him down. That guy wanted to grab him by the neck sometime, you know, what's the matter with you? And he'd always look at me, half, you know, knocked out. Oh, Mario, I love you. What are you going to do with him? Throw him down the stairs? It's the way he was. Nice guy, though, but that's life.
Down the street from the Whiskey, the Rainbow Bar and Grill has been a hangout for famous rockers since the 70s, but its pedigree goes back to the 1940s, when it was a little Italian restaurant called the Villanova. Vincent Minnelli proposed to Judy Garland here, and Joe DiMaggio put the squeeze on Marilyn Monroe in the back booth.
Well, this is the booth where Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio had the first date. And they came in, and one of them was real late for the date, and they had veal scallopini, but this is the booth they've met at.
Today, the restaurant showcases memorabilia from its celebrity patrons. manager Mike Weber has seen them come and go for 25 years.
Well, we have a lot of guitars that the musicians donated, like the one up here is from Guns N' Roses, Slash donated. That's the one he threw off a mountain in one of his videos. It was broken up a little bit, and we put it back together and hung it up, and they signed it. And you have a lot of history. Yeah, we have Jimi Hendrix's picture over here, and it's been donated to us. So we got a lot of history here of all the rock musicians.
And the kitchen is a popular spot for celebrity slumming.
This is the table that John Belushi had the last meal on. This is where me and John had a bowl of lentil soup the night before he died. And ever since then, the chef never served lentil soup here again. That was the last night for the lentil soup.
Almost everyone on the Strip has a story about John Belushi's last meal. But there's no dispute as to where he spent his last night. It was here, at the infamous Chateau Marmont, a grand hotel that has served as a popular celebrity hideaway since 1929. In 1982, the actor was staying in bungalow number 3 when he overdosed on a lethal combination of heroin and cocaine called a speedball. Another crash and burn landmark on the Strip is the Viper Room. Once a hangout for gangsters like Bugsy Siegel in the 1940s, it's now notorious for its celebrity patrons. The Viper Room is co-owned by actor Johnny Depp, and its black exterior exudes the kind of cool that only the Strip can produce. 23-year-old River Phoenix died on this sidewalk in 1993 after injecting himself with a speedball. For years, the unofficial mascot of the Strip was the Marlboro Man next to the Chateau Marmont. The giant billboard became a touchstone for travelers, bearing witness to the strange drama and memorable moments that unfolded on the Strip. But by the 1990s, smoking was no longer chic in California. So in place of the Marlboro Man today is a giant beer bottle. On Sunset Boulevard, success is not just measured by how many cars or ex-wives you have, but how much respect you command. In the clubs and hotels of the moment, an elaborate game is played out to decide who gets in and who gets turned away. The Standard is one of the newer hotels on the Strip. And the scene inside is where it's at for fabulous 20-somethings. Each night, performance artists do their thing, which may be nothing, in a giant glass display case behind the front desk. And a resident DJ lends a club-like atmosphere to the scene. Outside, Anya Varda keeps close watch over the door.
My attitude always is, I will get you in if you're a nice person and you're willing to wait a little bit of time. I hate having people wait because I know how awful it is when I have to wait someplace. I've had to turn a lot of people away, unfortunately, and I try to explain to them, the process of waiting and who I have to let in front of them. I have a lot of hotel guests. I am a hotel, not a nightclub. And sometimes people just are inappropriate to come in. They're badly dressed, or they have a bad attitude, or they're too drunk, or they just don't have a level of sophistication. But I like to let people into the hotel that, frankly, I would want to hang out with. People that I would want to sit down and have a cocktail with and chat with, and people who can bring something to the hotel that's interesting. I came to LA about 6 years ago. I was acting quite a bit at the time. I was a commercial actress, and I was very successful at it. But honestly, I think being an actress in Los Angeles is the worst thing to be, and I just became very fed up with it. It's a wonderful place to have your hopes dashed on some level, because there's just so many just like you. So, misery loves company, and there's a lot of them here.
Across the street is the Hyatt House, nicknamed the Riot House for its rowdy rock and roll clientele in the 60s and 70s. It's where Rolling Stones guitarist Keith Richards flung a television over the balcony, just because he could. Sunset Boulevard turns upmarket and becomes much more exclusive. One of the most glamorous addresses in Los Angeles is the Beverly Hills Hotel at the corner of Crescent Drive and Sunset Boulevard. The hotel was built in 1912 as a way to attract rich land buyers to the area. The plan worked, and soon the community of Beverly Hills sprouted up around the hotel. In time, the hotel and its exclusive Polo Lounge attracted the world's most famous clientele. Elizabeth Taylor changed bungalows each time she changed husbands. And Marilyn Monroe allegedly invited some of her most famous lovers to this bungalow, including the Kennedys and co-star Yves Montand. In the 1970s, the Pink Palace, as it came to be known, entered rock and roll mythology as the infamous Hotel California, pictured on the Eagles album cover. A suite at the Beverly Hills Hotel can set you back as much as $4,000 a night. From the palm-lined trees of Beverly Hills, Sunset Boulevard winds its way through Bel Air, where the mansions are hidden behind tall hedges and fences, including another pink palace, once owned by Jane Mansfield and later Engelbert Humperdinck. As Sunset Boulevard shakes off Tinseltown and begins its descent to the Pacific Ocean, there's an unexpected oasis of calm, a perfect metaphor for the yin and yang of California. The Self-Realization Fellowship Lake Shrine was built by an Eastern yogi in 1950 as a church devoted to the universality of all religions. This is the only place in the world where some of the ashes of the great spiritual leader Mahatma Gandhi are enshrined. In contrast to the astronomical prices at Sunset hotels, anyone can spend a night of quiet contemplation here for just $65. Beyond the lake shrine, Sunset Boulevard comes to an end, where it can go no further, at the Pacific Ocean. In a city where history is forgotten in a heartbeat, everyone is searching for their own piece of paradise. Through it all, the promise of Sunset Boulevard winds its way through our fantasies and into our dreams.